Well, it's official. I am now an inpatient at the San Antonio Military Medical Center, and I have to say the place is pretty nice. I have a pretty decent room, as cozy as a hospital can be, I suppose. Uh, I would say the hardest part so far was having to give my kiddos a hug and give my wife a kiss and know that I'm not going to see those kiddos for a while. When you get a bone marrow transplant, they actually have to knock down your immune system considerably. Basically, they have to kill off your entire immune system. And so because of your high risk of infection and things like that, they actually don't let any kids under the age of 12 on the bone marrow transplant floor. So probably means I'm not going to see them for a while. Now, we've been through this before. I'm in the Air Force, and so I've traveled a lot, and they're used to Daddy being gone for different trips. And last time I was in the hospital, I was in the hospital for about 40 days when I was first diagnosed, and it was the same thing. So it doesn't make it a whole lot easier, but at least we've been through the drill before. I guess that's the best way I could say it. I'm going to give you a little background on myself for those of you who don't know me personally. My name is Kenneth Raimondi, and I was diagnosed with very severe aplastic anemia in September of 2011. And basically what that is my bone marrow stopped producing enough cells. The cells I have are healthy, I just don't have enough of them. So when it comes to your red blood cells and your white blood cells and your platelets, those are all created in your bone marrow. When I was diagnosed, I had zero white blood cells, no anything, so I had no ability to fight off infection and basically no immune system. My red blood cells weren't too bad at the time, but they were dropping. And my platelets were 16,000 and they dropped as low as 9,000. And just to give you kind of an example, your white blood should be 3.5 and up. I was at 0. And your platelets should be between 150,000 and 450,000. And I was at 16,000 and then, like I said, down to 9 and even lower than that. So basically, I went through one treatment protocol called horse ATG. Basically, it is a pretty serious immunosuppressive therapy. Basically, it just knocks down your immune system to try to help your bone marrow recover. Because even though they don't know for sure what caused my aplastic anemia, they believe it's caused by what's called T cells. Inside your bone marrow, you have T cells along with your white blood cells and your red blood cells and things like that. And they believe that these T cells that normally are triggered to fight off infections and things like that can sometimes turn against you and attack your good cells. And there are some things that they have proven that can do that, like benzene exposure and exposure to certain chemicals and things like that. I didn't have any of those. I did take a medicine, an anti-malaria medication that may have caused it, but there's no real proof because it was such a long time window. So basically, my aplastic anemia is idiopathic. Well, that first treatment that I had suppressed my T cells, and it's been 6 months since I had that treatment. Now, most studies say that within 6 months your platelets should be above 50,000, and all your other counts should have doubled. So my white blood cells should be, in the average frame, and my platelets should be in 50, and my red blood should be climbing. Well, basically, all of my numbers have been stagnant since January. Platelets in the 20s, red blood at about 9.0, when you should be between 12 and 14, and white blood cells at about 2 to 2.5. And again, your average should be about 3.5 and up. So basically, with these numbers, they don't believe that it's going to come up in the next 4 or 6 months or longer. And when you have a late response, even if you do have a late response to this ATG, you have a very high risk for relapse. And so I was presented a couple of options. I can do that type of therapy again, ATG. I could try another therapy called Campath, or I could try a bone marrow transplant. The first two options had a low success rate and a high relapse rate, but of course they're also a lot less risky than a bone marrow transplant. I chose the bone marrow transplant because I was blessed enough to find a donor who is not a relative. Basically, they start with relatives if you have a sibling match. That's the first thing they want to do. If you don't have a sibling match, they'll do what's called a match unrelated donor, also known as a MUD donor. Basically, they just go out in a registry and look worldwide to see if anybody matches your type, which is called a HLA typing. I can get into more of the scientific stuff later, but right now I just want to give you the gist of it. And so anyway, a complete stranger is willing to give me his bone marrow. And is a very good match, same blood type, 12 for 12 match with high resolution testing. So basically as good as a non-relative match can be, I have found. And I just decided that I'm healthy now outside of this condition. And studies have shown that if you are healthy and you do this transplant within the first year of your diagnosis, the outcome is better than if you wait. And I know there's other studies that can argue it, and there's lots of different examples. This is just what has felt right for me. I truly believe God's going to work a miracle with this. I'm excited to take you through the journey. I'm hoping it's not very exciting. I hope it's very boring. That would be very good. But if we do have complications along the way, I'm going to walk you through them and I'm going to explain them to you. Because what I want to do is let folks know exactly what a bone marrow transplant is, if you're considering becoming a donor, how you could actually save a life by donating marrow. And also, I met a lot of friends who are in similar situations as I am, with these diseases that people don't know much about, and who are facing bone marrow transplants. And I hope to make it a little easier for you to understand this process as well, by you being able to watch me go through it. So anyway, I really appreciate you tuning in, and I hope you'll stick with it. And again, I just really hope that you will help spread the word so that more people can learn about aplastic anemia, bone marrow failure diseases in general, and also how to become a donor and maybe save a life. Thanks again, and have a good night.